about the security landscape out there. Every day there's a new ransomware, there's a new company breached. So I'm really curious from an implementer, somebody who manages an environment, if somebody comes to you and says, we don't know where to begin, we don't know where to start, what security technology would you suggest to get them in the game as quick as possible, make the biggest difference to improve their posture?
Absolutely, great question. So the most important thing that I would start is actually even before we get to technology. I would back it up a little bit, and I would say the first thing an organization needs, to me, the most important thing they need, is an individual who understands the challenges in the industry that organization is in. Because like I work in post-secondary, right? And challenges in post-secondary are different than challenges in, let's say, aviation.
Good point.
Different than challenges in financial, different in oil and gas. So that's kind of like where you start, right? Is you hire someone who's experienced and they don't necessarily have to come from the industry, but they're at least clued in to say, hey, this is a different industry than what I worked in previously. What are these challenges? And then they show up, and the first thing they do is they just learn, what does the organization have now, and what are areas that we're not.
So it's not a technology you'd recommend.
They're not doing very
it's
well,
a review more starting. Okay.
So if someone were to lock me in a room and say, all right, Michael, day one, we're not letting you out of this room until you tell us what a tech we need. I'm going to be locked in that room for quite some time because it would be difficult to be like, all right, you need a firewall, you need EDR, you need this or that. I'll tell you a story really quickly.
Sure.
I know somebody who they interviewed for an IT management role.
Okay.
And they were actually asked that question.
Oh, really? Okay.
In the interview, they were asked.
So I asked a really good question, very topical.
Literally an interview
Awesome.
question. They were asked, if you could make one change to our organization to better our security, what would it be?
Okay.
And they said, I would replace all your Windows computers with Linux computers.
Oh, wow. That's a big statement.
Yeah, and they didn't get the job, right? And
wow. I'm surprised.
And when you talk about that, you peel it back, and it's like, well, you're right in the sense that you could just change one piece of tech to another tech, hope for the best. But think about the implications of that type of change. Right? Maybe you're going to have to change software because it might not be available anymore. You're going to have to change a large user base and how they do stuff. That's organizational change management. Maybe we have to buy new products, not procurement, right? So that's also very important. Is not just knowing the industry you're working in, but also knowing if we're going to be deploying new technologies or if we're going to be replacing new technologies. What are I'll call it the downstream impacts of that?
Right.
How are we impacting our people? How are we impacting our operations and our workflows and our services? Because it's difficult, especially for security, it's difficult to just buy a piece of tech, put it in, and walk away. Because a lot of our security products are in the nature of blocking things and not letting things happen. So maybe that's kind of the answer I'll give you. But yeah, I think it's
a good one, because me and Rick talk a lot about what pre-sales engineering is, what we do, and I think where things get lost sometimes is we're selling a new feature, new functionality. Salespeople love, look at the new feature we have. We don't believe that's the right approach. And it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to somebody who's just an implementer, maybe that's an okay talking about features and functionality. Yeah. But for the most part, we're really here to solve business challenges. Yeah. How do we help the organization, like you? Yeah. What are your challenges? Do we have something that helps address those challenges? Yeah. Therefore, there's a gap. We could fill that gap, and that's where the solution comes in.
And that's vital too. Yeah. Right. So when you're working with third-party organizations and third-party providers, what you just said there is key. Right. One of my favorite things to hear is when somebody says to me, "Oh, Michael, we understand post-secondary. We get it." And I go, I've been in that industry for almost 15 years, and between me, the 7 people that report to me, the 12 people in the broader portfolio, the 300 people in the IT portfolio, the countless vice presidents and deans and CIOs and C-level exec and general counsel and privacy office, all of those working collectively together, we sort of kind of got it figured out, So for someone,
it's taken a long time.
For someone just be like, I get your industry. I'm like, no, you gotta step back a bit and do exactly what you just said. Ask them. Don't tell them what their problems are. Yeah. Ask them, what are your problems? And then when the organization says A, B, C, D, and E, that's where the trust and the honesty comes in. It's a
Right.
third party provider, and they say, you know what, A and B, that's not our game. That's not our industry. We don't play in that game. But C, D, and E.
But that's refreshing if
Man,
somebody
that's
tells you
awesome.
when they can't do something. You don't want to be sold a square that doesn't solve the circle. It doesn't work. So I think that's great. I think that's a great conversation piece, and I really like the step back approach, understanding what's in your environment. And I would agree with you that anybody who kind of came in and said, I understand your industry without being in it, it's probably a little bit of a red flag to me. So great. Thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate it.